If you wanted to rain in the Northwest Province, all you have to do is schedule the Jojo Tanks Baberspan 500 off-road race. This year's Baberspan was the second round of the National Off-Road Championship, with many competitors left wondering whether or not it would have been better to arrive with a jet ski. After the opening round of the championship in the Eastern Cape, the 200 motorcycle class was led by Clayton Ensland, with Gary Peterson and Natal superstar Alfie Cox leading the 250 and open classes. Peterson is a motocross Springbok who this year has decided on an off-road campaign.
What I've done is I've slowed down a little bit for the national off-road racing. I've paced myself, and I know probably in the last 30-40 Ks, after 400 Ks, I can be probably 10-15 minutes behind, and I know I can make up. So, and that's what's going to, if I ride like it, I'm going to stay on board.
Back in action after injury was AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM star Daryl Curtis.
Okay, we're leaving on Sunday for Nevada, the States. We'll be doing a desert race. AGA Panasonic are sending us over. We're riding a KTM 360 given to us by KTM America. The terrain is pretty similar to what we used to over here, so we're hoping to do very well.
Leading the quad category after one round of the championship were Yves van Lille and Christo van der Merwe. All the Northwest locals were rooting for Lichtenburg dairy farmer Vickers van Deventer on the Jojo Tanks Honda. Van Deventer has dominated the Baberspan in recent years and is also campaigning overseas this year.
Yeah, I can't make a mistake here to injure myself or anything, or any mistake, man. I'm out for the big race in Atlas Rally. It's 4,500 kilometers in Morocco. I look forward to that. So this race I will just take it easy and try to make some points. Jojo Tank sponsor this event, so I will try my best and just try to finish the race. That's very important for me.
John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie and Transvaal crew Frans Chepek Sr. and Jr. led the special vehicle category going into the Jojo Tanks Baberspan 500. Off-road racing is a family affair, with Rob Walk's son Gareth joining him on the event and sitting in the hot seat in the STP race car, with the pair thinking in terms of overall victory.
It remains to be seen, but I'm very glad to have Gareth with me. I think it's something that I've worked towards, and I think it's something that I've really wanted to do, and I think Gareth wants to do it, and we're going to go out there and have good fun. I think Gareth's going to learn a little bit on the navigating side, but I think all things take time to get to know. I hope I don't scare him, but I'm sure I won't.
Trying to teach an old dog new tricks was navigator Stratford Vogt, having fun with Arthur Harkes.
The 4x4 is a little bit higher off the ground, and being four-wheel drive is a lot better. I'm used to single-seater, so you sit a lot lower, and especially in this race today, with the water being so deep, I won't have to swim. And with four-wheel drive, we're going to be there. We'll be in the first couple for sure.
Reigning production vehicle champions Alpi Reineke and Robin Houghton opened their 1997 campaign with victory in the Queen Motorspares 400 in Tarkastad in the Eastern Cape. Reineke farms in the Northwest region and over the years has turned the Baberspan into a Reineke benefit. The Jojo Tanks Baberspan 500 kicked off with a time trial on day one, and it didn't take long, about 200 meters, for competitors to get a taste of the wet conditions they were going to face the following day in the race proper. The traditional time trial is held to determine start positions and was originally scheduled to be run over a distance of 25 kilometers. With sections of the time trial route impassable, the organizers blocked 9 kilometers off the section, but it was still no picnic. Off-road racers will tell you they don't really mind whether the conditions are wet or dry. Either way, off-road racing is an adventure, but conditions play a major role in making some events a little more adventurous than others. In the wet, four-wheel drive is a distinct advantage, but two-wheel drive can be so much more fun. Charging along at full throttle in the Space Frame special vehicles is designed to get the old adrenaline pumping at a fair rate, and TV cameramen also get the opportunity to come up with some exciting and creative footage. As with any form of motorsport, technological development, particularly in suspension systems, plays an important role in off-road racing. The search for better performance is a never-ending one, but at the end of the day, it was a homegrown special that came storming through to take the honors in the time trial. Jackie Hubert and Danny Smith in the Jojo Tanks VW Beetle Turbo pulverized the rest of the field to grab pole position for the following day. Hubert and Smith had a 42-second cushion over Reineke and Houghton in the factory Toyota Land Cruiser, but only 13 seconds separated the next 5 cars. For the intrepid quad brigade, the wet conditions were always going to be difficult. The quads are a handful to handle even in dry conditions, and over smooth terrain, and no one was going to be surprised if there was a high rate of attrition over the 480-kilometer route waiting for competitors on day 2. There were no major surprises in the time trial, with local favourite Vickers van Deventer finishing 38 seconds ahead of Paul Breckel on the Brasco Phillips Rotax. Christo van der Merwe, Chris van Niekerk and Johan van Lille completed the top 5. One thing motorcycle off-road racers, and they are a breed apart, know when they tackle a route like that on offer for the Baberspan 500 is that they are going to get wet, very wet and dirty. The time trial offered only a glimpse of what was to come on the morrow, but also produced plenty of evidence that pointed to close racing. Only 26 seconds separated the top 5 riders, and as was to be expected, it was the big guns who dominated. Alfie Cox led home teammate Jeremy Davies, who is on the comeback trail, with Alan Julian, Grant Bloomfield and Greg Aspinall closely bunched together. The Jojo Tanks Baberspan 500 consisted of a single loop of 480 kilometers. The route included Setlagole, Digtebos, Maritsane and Leeupan, with everyone holding thumbs for a clear day with no further rain. It was still dark when crews started preparing for the early morning start that is an off-road fetish. As usual, there were the last-minute repairs that had to be made, with everyone preparing for a long day. The weather looked promising, but like all the crews, Jackie Joubert and the experienced Api Reineke knew exactly what to expect out on the route.
Man, die eerste kwart omtrent pas die kar baie goed. Het gaan baie nat wees, het oral gereën. Die rest van die baan is raak het meer egalig en pas al die voertuie, maar oor algemeen is die kar goed aangepas vir die nat weerreëning.
Ek dink mens sal baie konservatief moet ry die eerste 100 km of wat, want die eerste stuk is gewoonlik baie turf en soos veel as wat dit gereën het, sal dit baie nat wees. So mens sal baie versigtig moet wees, oorversigtig moet wees, eerder bietjie stadiger moet ry. En ek dink so na Setlagole, daarvan dan kan 'n mens die krane oopdraai.
Ja, die natomstandighede is moeilik vir ons wat die vensters het nie. Die water kom ontsettend baie in, die modder is 'n probleem. Ons sukkel om te sien, maar as ons net redelik voor kan bly en die water word nie te vuil getrap deur die karre nie, dan is die water redelik skoon, dan kan hy hom redelik afgewas kry, kan hom daarom so 'n bietjie sien.
Back in harness after a 13-year sabbatical, Arthur Harkes was paired with Stratford Furth, with a pair giving the creepy crawly hugbug its first outing. They would have preferred drier conditions, along with Roy Slubber and Willie Morton, who got his soaking almost within sight of the start. There was a major drift on the other side of the fan that provides a picturesque setting for the start and the tent village that springs up overnight. Picturesque it might be with the sun starting to rise, but obstacles like this can get the day off to a bad start for many crews. Former national champions Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in the Motortech Jimco had their day start off on a sour note when water in the electrics saw them grind to a halt. While Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne were temporarily out of action, Chris Kunicke moved ahead of the pair in the Raceco. There were also no problems for Gerrit and Lawrence du Plessis in an earlier version of the Raceco, with Theo Coetzee and Ian Wedderburn in the imported Chef S10 ahead of Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert, who were hell-bent on making up time in the Pennzoil Land Rover after a disappointing time trial. There were also early problems for Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk in the factory-supported Toyota Hilux. Privateers Jaapie Skutter and Gert van der Walt were among a string of crews who moved ahead of the stricken Lemmer de Klerk Toyota Hilux. Schumi and Karel van Vuren were going well in the Mitsubishi Pajero, along with Frick Mulder and Jaco van der Linde in the imported Dodge Dakota. Up Periscope, icy dry land ahead. No problems for Coetzee Labuskaghni and Johan Gerber in the Chev Nomad, but the conditions also got the better of brothers Colin and Derek Frankenberg in the Forsdix Range Rover. They needed a little help from a friendly farmer, with Vickers van Deventer, the first of the quad racers, appearing on the scene. There were dry sections on the route, but while Api Reineke and Robin Houghton in the Toyota Land Cruiser were enjoying a little high-speed motoring, about 80 kilometers behind them, Bevan Bertel was still being pulled out of the mud. Llewellyn Anthony and Chris Birkin were having a good run in the turbo diesel Toyota Hilux, but had Hilton Laurie and David Coombs on their tail in the race code. Roy Slubber has only one arm, but he and Willie Morton were also having a good drive, with former winner Derek Plenoy and Craig Jackson making up ground in the Quickford race code. Also making up ground were Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert in the Pennzoil Land Rover, and they had moved ahead of Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. Coetzee and Leek were struggling with a clutch problem and were gradually dropping back. While a couple of locals watched the action from a handy vantage point, Marius Belrain in the little Mighty Mag was rapidly closing in on Coetzee and Leek. After their early encounter with wet electrics, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne were moving through the field in a Motortech Jimco. The former champions led a gaggle of cars that included 19-year-old Shamir Warihawa and Liko Khan, who were having an impressive run in car 99, the imported AV Racing Chenoweth. Behind Warihawa and Khan, the Harkus Voogd Creepy Crawley Hugbug was running into problems with water seeping into the fuel system. The Hugbug was starting to misfire badly, and Harkus and Voogd were headed for a frustrating run to the finish. For a despondent Coetzee and Leek, it was the end of the road. The Castrol Toyota Hilux had finally succumbed to a clutch problem.
Yes, unfortunately, we were having a good run from the beginning. About 20 k's out, we were about 15 seconds behind RP, and the turbo pipe came off. We had to stop and fix that. That took about 3 or 4 minutes. We got going again, but we'd been having clutch problems from the beginning. It wouldn't select cleanly, and now it won't select at all. So that's it.
With Vickers van Deventer already forced to call it a day, Mark Breckel was running at the head of the quad field, with matters hotting up in the production vehicle category. RP Reinecker and Robin Houghton were still out in front in the Toyota Land Cruiser, but on corrected time, the Pennzoil Land Rover, driven by Cliffy Barker and Malcolm Joubert, was only seconds behind the reigning champions and still closing. After their disappointing time trial, Barker and Joubert were on a mission. The fuel and service stop at the halfway mark offered weary competitors a short respite from the rigors of championship off-road racing. Refueling and hasty repairs, if needed, often turn refuel points into near-panic areas. But at this year's Jojo Tank Baberspan 500, most of the competitors were more interested in wiping off some of the accumulated mud and dirt. Drivers and navigators always have a tale or two to tell about experiences out on the route, with John Lambert in the Digidor 2, one of those whose day had not gone exactly according to his schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I'm battling with the kingpin bushes seem to be very tight, and I can't control it in the tight stuff. But we got it going again. Unfortunately, on the way, right in the early stages, I hit Rob Walk, and I had to stop and repair the car.
Theo Coetzee and Ian Wedderburn were trying to cure an overheating problem that was slowing the Chev S10, but all was cool and calm and collected in the Warihawa camp. When they arrived at the service point, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne were worried about the steering box, but with the sun starting to shine, Schilling was beginning to perk up.
It looks pretty good. Terrible. Getting nice now, the sun's coming out. But it was very, very muddy this morning. The car was going beautifully, and we'll see at the finish. Watch.
With the majority of the car field already having made it to the refuel point, everyone was waiting for the arrival of the first quad. As expected, there had been a high rate of attrition among the quad brigade, with pre-race favourite Vickers van Deventer among those who had gone missing. It was a mud-spattered Mark Breckel on the FMF Brasco Yamaha who was first to put in an appearance at the service point.
This morning was a bit muddy, but it's getting nice now. Nice and sandy as well. Enjoyable on the Banshee.
Characters abound in motorsport, and there was a light-hearted spirit among the crowds who gathered at vantage points along the route. It was all harmless fun, but the serious side of off-road racing was manifesting itself in a rapidly developing battle in the production vehicle category between reigning champions RP Reinecker and Robin Houghton and Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert. The Toyota pair were now only seconds ahead of the Pennzoil Land Rover on the road, and on corrected time, their lead was even more tenuous. The V8-powered Land Rover was sounding glorious, and with a win long overdue, Barker had the bit between his teeth. The Llewellyn Anthony Chris Birkin turbo diesel Toyota Hilux had not missed a beat and was an impressive third in the category. The big surprise was the performance of Shamir Variawa and Liko Khan, who had unobtrusively taken the AV Racing Chenoweth into the lead in the special vehicle class. There were no surprises in the bike category, with Old Faithful Alfie Cox out in the front on the AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM. Errol Dalton, who broke his leg in a jet ski accident at the Baberspan last year, was second to Cox on the Shell Honda, with Alex Vowles third on the Antelix Dairy KTM and leading the 250 class. Vowles was starting to come under pressure from the Shell Honda pair of Alan Julian and Graham McLaughlin, who had Gary Peterson closing in on him on the Brasco Kawasaki. Local rider Dion Botha was having a good day on a privately entered KTM, but was soon to drop back into the pack. Rian van Niekerk on the AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM was at the front of the 200 class, but closing in on him were Clayton Ensland on the Elna Fox Kawasaki and Henny Human on the PV Motorcycles Kawa. At this stage of proceedings, only 4 quad racers were still left running, with a race turning into a straight fight between Johan Kruger and Mark Breckel, with both of them mounted on Yamaha Banshees. With Alpi Reineke and Robin Houghton in sight of the finish in the Toyota Land Cruiser, the drama in the Jojo Tanks Baberspan 500 was far from over. The Land Cruiser expired in deep water, with Reineke and Houghton losing more time to Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert. Not that Barker and Joubert escaped scot-free. The Pennzoil Land Rover expired in exactly the same spot as the Toyota, but on corrected time, Barker and Joubert had the production vehicle category win in the bag. There were also late problems for Theo Kutsia and Ian Wedderburn with the Chev S10, now sans bonnet. The Free Staters had Class F in the bag and were third in the production vehicle category when they got bogged down. Kutsia and Wedderburn could see the finish on the other side of the pan, but while they floundered in the mud, along came Llewellyn Anthony and Chris Birkin in the diesel turbo Toyota Hilux to nip into third place overall, while Kutsia and Wedderburn were being towed out of the mire. A long overdue win for Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert, with Alpi Reineke and Robin Houghton pushed into second place. A terrific performance from Anthony and Birkin, along with the Kutsia Wedderburn and Grobler Wormrands combinations.
Yes, look, yesterday we didn't have four-wheel drive on the time trial, so we were 3 minutes behind the leading track. And today we had to chase from behind. Eventually we were leading, then we got lost, and then we got stuck in the water and got a flat wheel. And eventually I think the chase around the pan was sort of what did it.
A fairy tale national championship debut saw the impressive Shamir Variawa and Liko Khan bring the AV Racing Chenoweth home to a completely unexpected win in the special vehicle category. Second on the road were John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie in the Digidor Raceco, but on corrected time they dropped a couple of places. A little apprehensive of another bout of water in the electrics, which hampered them soon after the start, saw Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne adopt a very cautious approach to the final water hazard in the Motortech Jimco. They moved ahead of Lambert and Fourie, along with Wade and Grant Perrins, who slipped into third place overall after a steady drive in the Jack's Paint Sandmaster. A great drive from one-armed Roy Slubber took him and Willie Morton into fifth place in the special vehicle category, though they almost threw it away right at the end. Slubber and Morton just managed to extricate themselves from trouble, but Derek Penoy and Craig Jackson in a Quickfit Raceco were not quite so lucky. A popular result in the special vehicle category, with Shamir Variawa and Liko Khan winning in the AV Racing Chenoweth. Their marvellous performance brought them in ahead of vastly experienced crews like the Schilling, Thorne and Perrins combinations.
Yeah, with us being a space frame in a rear-wheel drive car, obviously the bakkies have more advantage over us, so it's a bit tight for us to try and manage over the muddy conditions.
After running into an early problem when fence wire got caught up in the spokes of the AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM, the peerless Alfie Cox cruised to his second Baberspan win. Like good wine, Cox just seems to get better and better with age. After his jet ski mishap last year, there were happier memories this time for Errol Dalton on the Shell Honda. Alex Vowles got everything right to dominate the 250 category on the Antilex Dairy KTM, while a late charge took Clayton Ensland to victory in the 200 class on the Elna Fox Kawasaki. As expected in the wet, the bigger capacity machines dominated, with Cox adding the 500 class win to his overall victory. Vowles wrapped up the 250 class ahead of Alan Julian on the Shell Honda, with Clayton Ensland the top man in the 200 category.
This year, the 500s caught up to me within 2 minutes at the service point. Just leaving the service point, a car obviously brought some barbed wire into the road and jammed my rear wheel up, and I spent 5 minutes trying to take the wire out of the wheel, and Grant Bloomfield and Errol Dalton came past me. So then again I had to work again from behind, and I got them before the second last refuel, and coming home the last 160 kilometers I got a nice pace, felt very good, and just came 11 minutes in the lead, and I'm happy. It's been good. Baberspan has never been my best event, and these last 2 years has been great for me.
The mud bath just before the finish almost claimed quad leader Johan Kruger. It was spectacular stuff, as Vickers van Deventer, who had earlier retired from the event, sportingly rescued Venter from a last-minute catastrophe.
Ja, dit is net maar baie goed. Ek is baie bly vir Johan Kreer se part. Hy verdien dit. Hy ry soveel jare nog nooit, en vandag het hy hom. Johan, baie geluk, jy het hom.
There were just 4 finishes in a quad category. It was a brave performance from Johan Kruger, with second-placed Mark Breckel followed on by Louis Boshoff and Adrian High.
There's a lot of mud all over the place. Just coming back on the second loop, the fan there, about mud about 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers long, caused a stuck here. You couldn't get past it.